March 2025, an anonymous account on Chinese social media published the private lives of at least 5 strangers with their full names, national ID numbers, home addresses, and spending records. The account belonged to a 13-year-old girl who taunted her victims that she lived in Canada, safely out of reach. So the crowd turned the same tool on her, and the trail ended at one of the biggest tech companies in China. I'm Sam Suhan, and today I want to tell you the story of when, in February 2025, a K-pop fandom argument that began on Discord spilled onto Weibo and escalated the way these things do, with insults and pile-ons. And, of course, it escalated further, and by March, a 13-year-old was posting strangers' national ID numbers into the replies, and the whole affair detonated into the family of one of China's most senior tech executives. The story went viral for the obvious reasons: a rich man's daughter, a cruel teenager, a humiliated company, and predictably, almost everyone argued about the girl, but almost no one looked at the machine she was using. That machine is the subject of this video. It has a name, a price list, and a supply chain, and 9 years before this girl ever touched it, the same machine killed a student on her way to college. And once you see how it works, you'll see why every official remedy points in the wrong direction, and why this is less a story about China than a preview of the road nearly every country is on. The argument that started it was really a big nothing. A verified account, as a show of support, posted that John Won Young, a senior in the K-pop group IVE, had flown to Europe and back in a single punishing day. In the comments, someone shrugged it off. The idol was not flying the plane herself, and first class is comfortable enough to sleep in. The fandom descended on the dissenters, and a pregnant woman was among the people it hunted down. Among those who objected was a woman posting as Xiao Ke, who wrote that hunting down a stranger who happened to be pregnant had gone too far. An account replied with her full name and her national ID number. Its handle was "你的眼眸是世界上最小的湖泊." Your eyes are the smallest lake in the world. Xiao Ke opened its history and found she was not the first. At least 5 people had been laid out the same way. When others pointed out that publishing ID numbers is a crime, the owner, a 13-year-old girl, answered that she lived in Canada where Chinese police could not reach her. That sentence turned the crowd. Her victims took that Canada detail, fed it into an identical lookup tool, and her own file came back. The most damaging document, though, she had supplied herself. Days earlier, she had posted her father's employment certificate on Weibo, boasting about his salary. Netizens matched the stamp on it, a company called Dulion Network Technology, whose sole shareholder is Baidu's Hong Kong arm, and the trail ended at Xie Guangjun, a senior vice president at Baidu, the company running China's dominant search engine. He was making roughly 220,000 yuan a month after tax, about $32,000. On March 17th, Xia apologized on WeChat, describing a daughter who had lost her composure and reposted private information found on an overseas website. Baidu ran an internal review, had it notarized, and stated that nothing had leaked from Baidu. No employee at any level, it said, had the authority to touch user data. The timing was unkind. One day earlier, Baidu had launched its newest flagship AI models, and its official account spent the week buried under a fandom war it had no part in starting. Strip away the corporate drama and the mechanics are simple. She typed a name into a phone and got back a stranger's life. The tool was ordinary, it was cheap, and it was never hers. The practice has a name: Kai He, opening the box. Every online account is treated as a sealed box. To open one is to spill the real person behind the handle out onto the internet. The thing that does the opening has a name too: a social engineering database hosted on Telegram and services like it outside the Great Firewall. Feed it a phone number or a name and it returns a stitched together file. The better run ones behave like consumer apps. On one of them, an ordinary user could check in daily to earn a free lookup and invite friends to earn more, the same reward loop a mobile game uses to keep you coming back. Everything carries a price. A household registration record runs about 50 yuan, roughly $7. A live phone location costs closer to 2,000 yuan, about $300. A reporter at the paper, a state outlet, paid 300 yuan by QR code to open the box on himself. Back came his name, his old phone numbers, his QQ account, and a home address 5 years out of date. Most of the file was stale, but his national ID number was exact. When he asked for more, the price went up. Stale and enormous. In February 2023, a bot on a foreign messaging app was found serving roughly 4.5 billion domestic records, most of it courier data, the names, phone numbers, and addresses printed on package labels. Researchers at a China Telecom Institute pulled the data and confirmed it was real. What that buys in practice went before a Beijing court in the spring of 2025. Two men ran a channel attacking the rival fans of virtual streamers. They bought their targets' files, posted them, and added invented details to aim the crowd. When one streamer visited a hospital, they tracked which specialist she saw, and the minute she arrived, pushed it live to a group of 30,000 people. Within a few months, they had opened more than 3,000 individuals, 2 of whom developed depression. When police made the arrests, one of them was a college junior. The other was a doctoral student in network security. The files themselves rarely begin with a break-in. This trade is a supply chain. Leaks at the top, database operators merging and cleaning in the middle, scammers and stalkers at the bottom, and the top of the chain is mostly people with legitimate access selling what they can already see. Between 2020 and 2023, Chinese police cracked 36,000 personal information cases and arrested 64,000 people. More than 2,300 were insiders at telecoms, hospitals, insurers, real estate firms, and courier companies. A Beijing court said in 2023 that the main source of this crime is the people inside. In Sichuan, a police officer used his own department-issued terminal and digital certificate to pull vehicle registration and household records for sale, clearing 558,818 yuan, about $82,000, before he was fired and sentenced to 3 years and 8 months. The state's own access terminal was the leak. To understand why the file exists at all, go back 9 years to a girl who never argued with anyone online. In the summer of 2016, Xu Yuyu, 18 years old, from a village outside Linyi in Shandong, scored 568 on the Gaokao, China's university entrance exam, and won a place to study English at Nanjing University of Post and Telecommunications. Her family had almost nothing. Her mother's leg was disabled, her father took odd jobs at a construction site, and the 9,900 yuan saved for her first year, about $1,450, had taken half a year to build. Then came the setup that made the con work. On August 17th, her father took her to the District Education Bureau to apply for a poverty grant. On the 18th, the bureau called to say the money would arrive within days. When the phone rang on the 19th and a voice said a grant was waiting, her account needed activating first, it fit. It fit because the caller already knew she was a new admit, knew about the grant, and knew her. What followed was a sequence of ordinary actions. It was raining. She biked to the bank where the ATM camera holds her last image. She withdrew the 9,900 yuan, moved it to the account the caller gave her, and waited at the bank for the grant and her own money to come back together, as she had been told they would. In Quanzhou, several provinces south, the cash was already coming out of a machine. She biked home in the rain, reported the theft to the police, and on the road back from the station, her heart stopped. She died 2 days later. Her admission letter was still on the table at home. The data came from Du Tianyu, an 18-year-old in Chengdu, the same age as the girl whose file he sold. He had found a hole in Shandong's 2016 Gaokao online registration system and pulled more than 640,000 candidates' records. He sold a batch to Chen Wenhui, a junior high dropout who ran the phone scam and drew a life sentence. Interviewed afterward, Chen said student data was cheap to buy and that he had only wanted to make some money. Du got 6 years. The leak sat in the last place a Chinese family would expect. The Gaokao is the one system treated as the fair ladder, the exam meant to be blind to who your father is. The database behind it was the wound. Every candidate's name, number, score, and home address entered so the state can run the exam for millions at once. A system built to make 10 million students a year legible to the state made one of them perfectly legible to a teenager with a downloader. Legible is the operative word here, and the system that enabled China's massive population indexing predates the internet. Because to govern people at scale, a state must first make them readable enough to tax and enroll and to hand out grants by the million. The cleanest way to do that is to give each person a single key that resolves everything else. In China, the key is mature and total. A resident ID number encodes your birthplace and birth date in its digits, your phone is registered to it, your bank account, food deliveries, hotel stays, train tickets, and household registration all thread back to the same number. One string resolves a whole life. None of that is sinister on its face, which is exactly why it endures. A government serving 1.4 billion people needs them legible, and a single linked identity does that. The trouble is that readable to the state means readable to anyone who obtains the key, and the key is held by millions of clerks, officers, couriers, and contractors, so it leaks pretty constantly. By the time anyone types a query, the dossier already exists. The state and the intermediaries it requires compiled it in advance whether or not the box is ever opened. The bot on Telegram merely sells the index to a file assembled at home. The way the story got told is itself evidence. Officials, state outlets, the company, everyone points outward. The database is offshore, the girl was in Canada, the insiders are rogue, the platforms should filter harder. Every remedy on offer lives downstream at the last bad actor and leaves the center untouched, where a citizen sits pre-collated under one number, resolvable on demand. The apology had the same geometry, so to speak. Xia posted it to his WeChat moments, visible only to his own contacts. Xiaoke went to her local police station the next day and rejected it. This was an apology posted where the victims could not see it. She asked for a public apology and an explanation of where the data came from and received neither. Baidu kept pointing outward too. A notarized internal review, a police report against the rumor that the girl's parents had supplied the database, and no outside auditor near its systems. Xia was pulled from his keynote at Baidu's AI event that week. Resignation rumors surfaced twice and were never confirmed. By October 2025, tech media reported he remained a vice president, now handed an additional department focused on business efficiency. No consequence for the girl was ever reported. She was a minor in Canada, and when she said the law could not reach her, she was describing the one part of this that worked exactly as stated. One last scene worth discussing. Two prosecutors went on CCTV, the state broadcaster, to warn the public about opening the box. One explained on camera how criminals use bots to search the offshore databases. Within days, both prosecutors had been opened themselves. When everyone is resolvable, no role protects you, including the role of explaining that everyone is resolvable. Which points at the honest fix, the one the official story cannot reach because it indicts the architecture rather than the actors. Germany's constitutional court ruled in 1983 that cataloging a citizen's entire personality is incompatible with human dignity, a decision that kept the country off a single all-purpose citizen number for decades. Austria engineered an alternative system. A residence master number exists for a single purpose, deriving separate identifiers, one for each sector of government, at least 35 in all. The math runs in one direction only, so the tax office's key for a person cannot be computed from the health systems. A bribed clerk there leaks a sector, and a sector is all he leaks. A less useful key, one that opens less than an entire person at a time, would have saved Xu Yuyu and the 5 strangers alike. Put the pieces in one place. A fandom argument over an idol's flight swept up a pregnant stranger. A 13-year-old with a cheap lookup tool posted at least 5 strangers' lives, then watched the crowd assemble hers straight down to her father's salary. 9 years earlier, the same trade and the same kind of file took 9,900 yuan in a life from a family that had almost nothing. Between those two events sits 64,000 arrests, a police officer selling records off his own terminal, and 2 prosecutors doxxed within days of warning the country about doxing. Every case shared one element: a file compiled in advance, keyed to a single number, waiting for someone to run the query. That design is spreading in slower motion nearly everywhere. India has enrolled more than 1 billion people into a single biometric ID. American data brokers already sell a stitched file on nearly everyone, no offshore bot required. China arrived first and most completely, which is why the finished product went on display there before it reaches you. If this video changed how you think about the number your whole life is keyed to, join my newsletter. The link is in the description. Every source behind this video is collected in a Notion document, also linked in the description, so you can trace each claim back to where I found it. Pick whichever fits where you are right now. Beyond that, subscribe to the channel so the next one reaches you when it's ready. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.